President Trump has spent much of his first 100 days fast-tracking his administration's agenda with record numbers of executive orders. He's targeted everything from immigration and federal spending to showerhead pressure. As Trump inks more orders, people have pointed out similarities between those directives and proposals in Project 2025, that conservative policy outline that he said he had nothing to do with during the campaign. Well, the CBS News Confirm unit has been tracking these parallels since the president's first week in office, and Kara Fellows joins us now to break down the numbers. So what did your team find?
Yeah, so President Trump signed roughly 140 executive orders during his nearly first 100 days in office. We looked at every single one and compared it to language and proposals in Project 2025. So we can take a look at some of the data that we pulled out. Now, if you look at this, roughly one third of these executive orders match Project 2025 when it comes to language or policy proposals. We can actually look at some of the specific executive orders that made headlines and, as it turns out, have this strong connection. So this is his executive order targeting university accreditation. If you look closely, you can see that they are saying accreditors are forcing universities to take on DEI practices and calling it unlawful. Now, Project 2025 also calls for an overhaul of the accreditation system and specifically points out diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Another one to look at is his executive order on transgender people in the military. If you look closely, again, you can see that they say that gender dysphoria does not meet rigorous standards necessary for military service. Project 2025 calls gender dysphoria incompatible with the demands of military service. So very similar language here.
What about the other two-thirds of his orders?
Yes, so we looked at those as well, and you can see that another third are what we called an indirect match. So they indirectly support proposals in Project 2025. We can look closely. These are things like his tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Now, when he made these executive orders, he specifically cited fentanyl coming across the border. Project 2025 doesn't make any reference to these tariffs. However, it does say that the president's top drug policy priority should address the fentanyl crisis. There's another third in here that's important to look at. That is this not mentioned section. So these are things that the president has enacted that are not in Project 2024 at all. Things like the showerhead pressure that you mentioned, which trickled in from his first term, and the paper straws. If we dive a little closer into the data, you can see that actually 5 orders go even further and specifically directly oppose Project 2025. These are orders like the TikTok ban, which is something that Project 2025 wanted, and the Trump administration, as we know, has repeatedly delayed.
So are people wrong to say his executive orders are mirroring Project 2025?
The important thing to know is that Project 2025 is a massive document. There's more than 900 pages. There's more than 735 clear policy proposals. And these ideas aren't unique to Project 2025. They're things Trump campaigned on. They're things that are widely discussed in conservative circles. President Trump himself has repeatedly distanced himself from Project 2025. We reached out to the White House in response to this reporting and did not receive a comment.
Kara Fellows, thank you.